Hello everyone, and welcome to today's presentation. I'm excited to share with you the story of Lady Dhurandhar, a remarkable spy, a profound sacrifice, and a mission that truly saved the world. Today, we'll be exploring part 2 of her incredible journey, covering chapters 8 through 15. We'll delve into her daring exploits, the challenges she faced, and the impact of her actions. So let's get started and uncover the inspiring story behind this extraordinary woman. In the previous video, we followed Everard D'Cruz's tragic journey through chapters 1 to 7. He was a young man of white Portuguese heritage living in Goa, and despite his deep love for India, he faced rejection and discrimination. After being turned away from the police force, he unexpectedly found himself at a crime scene, which would change his life forever. He was falsely accused of a brutal murder, with evidence planted against him, leading to a guilty verdict and an unimaginable punishment. His life was shattered, and everything seemed lost. But now, in this part of the story, from chapters 8 to 15, things take a startling turn. Just when it seemed like all hope was gone, Everard manages a daring escape. This escape leads him into the hands of India's top intelligence officials in New Delhi. It's here that he uncovers the truth. His innocence is finally revealed. He's offered a dangerous, life-changing mission, one that requires him to make a profound choice. Everard decides to sacrifice everything, his identity, his past, even his very existence, to become someone new, Evelyn D'Cruz. His transformation isn't just physical, it's a complete rebirth tied to a secret mission that could change the course of history. This mission is deeply personal, but also has the potential to impact an entire nation. It raises questions about identity, sacrifice, and destiny, what he's willing to give up to serve a greater purpose. So, as we move forward, think about how far someone is willing to go when the stakes are this high, and how one person's sacrifice can truly change the world. The older of the two men stepped forward with a calm authority that immediately demanded attention. He introduced himself as Amar Rastogi, the National Security Advisor of India, directly reporting to the Prime Minister. Beside him was his associate, Sachin Tyagi. For a moment, I couldn't process what I was hearing. New Delhi, government officials, national security, it all sounded unreal, like a distant dream far removed from the nightmare I'd been living. Overwhelmed, I broke down again, convinced this was just another layer of the trap I'd fallen into, another illusion before my inevitable end. But then, Amar Rastogi handed me a handkerchief and spoke with unexpected warmth. He told me to wipe my tears and assured me they knew everything about me, my past, my case, my innocence. For the first time, someone in authority acknowledged what I'd been screaming all along, that I was not guilty, that I had been framed. Those words hit me harder than any insult or punishment, because they carried validation, recognition, and truth. As I struggled to regain my composure, Rastogi continued. He explained that I was not just a victim of injustice, but also someone uniquely valuable to the nation, someone who could serve India in a way no one else could. Then he shifted the conversation toward something far bigger. He revealed intelligence inputs about a possible global pandemic being planned, or at least anticipated, between 2018 and 2020, possibly originating from China. He spoke of powerful global networks, often called deep states or even the Illuminati, operating beyond governments and accountability. These entities, driven by profit and control, could engineer crises like viruses and profit from their solutions. While they couldn't confirm direct involvement of figures like Bill Gates, his recent TED Talk warning about pandemics had raised suspicions. It seemed he might be indirectly hinting at something larger, something imminent. For India, with its massive population, such a pandemic could be catastrophic, not just threatening lives, but shaking the very foundation of the nation. The strategy, then, was not necessarily to stop the event, since that might be impossible, but to prepare in advance. We needed detailed knowledge about the virus and its antidote, so we could protect our people when the time came. As I absorbed all this, my scientific background in virology helped me grasp the gravity of the situation. Yet, one question remained at the forefront of my mind. How did I fit into all of this? What role could I possibly play in something so vast, so complex, so beyond my broken existence? Amar Rastogi paused for a moment, studying Everard carefully before continuing, as if weighing how much he could handle. Then he explained the core of the plan, revealing that Everard's uniqueness was not a coincidence but an opportunity. His rare Luso-Indian identity, his pure Portuguese ancestry, his natural fluency in the language and culture, these were vital. But most importantly, his physical appearance, his feminine features and soft structure, traits that had caused him suffering, were now the very reasons he had been chosen. Because this mission required infiltration at a level where identity itself had to be transformed. The target was Wuhan, China, specifically the scientific community where a probable virus was being developed. Within that ecosystem was a key individual, Dr. Adam Costa, a young, brilliant Portuguese virologist working in Wuhan. Someone who would naturally feel isolated in a foreign land, dominated by a different culture. Someone who would instinctively gravitate toward familiarity, toward someone who looked like him, spoke his language, shared his roots. That person would be Evelyn D'Cruz, not Everard. As those words settled in, Everard felt the ground shift beneath him. Because what Rastogi was suggesting was not just a mission, it was a complete transformation. He would have to become a woman, externally, biologically, socially, psychologically, to live as Evelyn D'Cruz. A Portuguese woman entering Wuhan University as a virology student, starting from Portugal, building a natural connection with Adam, gradual, emotional, real, so he would trust her, share information. It would be a honey trap, but executed with such authenticity that it wouldn't feel like one. In a place like Wuhan, where Portuguese presence was almost non-existent, a woman like Evelyn would stand out automatically, draw attention, especially from someone like Adam, making the connection inevitable rather than suspicious. Everard's mind was overwhelmed, struggling to process what was being asked of him. The idea of becoming Evelyn, of living as a woman, and using his identity, his body, and his emotions as tools for a mission that could save millions, it was a lot to take in. Instinctively, he reacted, firmly rejecting the idea. He made it clear that he was not a woman and had no intention of becoming one. Despite acknowledging his feminine traits, he stood his ground. Rastogi, however, did not push him aggressively. Instead, he laid out a stark reality, reminding him of what awaited if he chose to return. Castration, torture, humiliation, death, these were the brutal consequences. It would be a life stripped of dignity. But then, Rastogi contrasted that grim future with the possibility of a new life, living with dignity as Evelyn. Here, he could not only survive but serve his nation in a way no one else could. It was framed not as a loss of identity, but as an evolution, maybe even destiny. Rastogi suggested that all the struggles, the rejection, the changes he had gone through, his appearance, his pain, had been guiding him to this moment, this choice. As silence filled the room, Everard found himself at a crossroads. Two fates stood before him, one certain and horrific, the other uncertain but filled with purpose. For the first time in a long while, he realized he was not being forced into something, but was being offered a choice. A decision that could redefine his entire life. He paused, then finally spoke. "Sir, I am ready to talk," Rastogi asked. "Okay, so what have you decided?" Everard took a deep breath and responded. "Sir, I know it's not easy to accept what you are asking me to do. But on the other side, I don't really have any options. The only other option, going back, is like a worst nightmare. This new path you're offering might bring happiness and prosperity that I can't even imagine right now." He continued, sharing a personal, emotional connection. "There's also a deeper reason. My mother passed away young along with my father. She was very ambitious, very nationalist, just like me. She always had dreams like mine but couldn't realize them. I am her mirror in looks, same height, same features. If I transition, I know I will look exactly like her. I believe she will live her dreams through me, the life she couldn't have. So I am ready to give this a try." Hearing this, Rastogi and Tyagi were moved. They expressed their understanding of his pain and emotions. They told him they were very happy to hear that he was accepting their proposal. The journey of Everard to Evelyn began from the very next morning, not as a symbolic shift, but as a complete immersion into a new existence that would erase his past and rebuild him into someone entirely different. Someone the world would never connect to the disgraced boy from Goa. He was taken to a secure 3-bedroom house located in a remote area near the national capital, a place fully controlled by the intelligence agency where safety, secrecy, and transformation would go hand in hand. And the moment he stepped inside, he realized this was not just a safe house, but a carefully constructed reality designed for a young woman to live in. Every detail was meticulously curated, from the wardrobe filled with elegant Western dresses, skirts, tops, heels, makeup kits, jewelry, and accessories, to the decor that radiated warmth and femininity. Everything felt unfamiliar yet strangely comforting. And for the first time in his life, Everard felt a sense of peace he had never known before. Maids were assigned for daily needs, professional salon and beauty services were arranged at home, and he was slowly introduced to a world he had never imagined himself belonging to. Instead of resistance, something unexpected began to happen. He started adapting, not forcefully, but naturally, as if something within him had always been waiting for this. His training began simultaneously. Voice modulation sessions reshaped his tone into a soft, natural feminine voice. Hormone replacement therapy was initiated under strict medical supervision. Because his physical structure was already delicate and feminine, the transformation process progressed faster than expected. His hair was grown out, grooming routines were established, and he was taught posture, expressions, and behavioral nuances. Every day, he moved further away from Everard and closer to Evelyn. What began as survival slowly turned into acceptance, and acceptance into comfort, and comfort into identity. Within months, the trauma of his past life began fading into the background, replaced by a growing familiarity with being addressed as she, her, and madam. This shift no longer felt like a disguise, but like a truth he was finally allowing himself to live. Deep inside, he started to enjoy the softness, the care, the emotional space he was being given, something he had never experienced as Everard. Without even realizing when it happened, Evelyn started becoming his first instinct, not a role he was playing, but a person he was becoming, naturally, seamlessly, completely. As Evelyn underwent her physical and psychological transformation, Mr. Amar Rastogi and Mr. Sachin Tyagi were working behind the scenes on one of the most intricate identity reconstructions ever attempted. Their goal was to ensure that Everard D'Cruz would cease to exist, not only legally, but also in the minds of history. In his place, Evelyn D'Cruz would emerge as a fully authentic individual with a credible past, complete documentation, and a believable life story. They meticulously created records of her being born and raised in Kochi, adopted by an affluent family at birth due to her biological parents' financial struggles. They fabricated her educational history to align perfectly with her Bachelor of Science in Virology, and made sure her photographs, certificates, and identification records were scattered across multiple systems to make her identity seamless and believable. They also initiated the process for Portuguese citizenship, leveraging her pure Portuguese lineage, which made her case exceptionally strong and natural, something that would not raise suspicion. Alongside these efforts, arrangements were made for her admission into the University of Lisbon for a master in virology, with a planned exchange program to Wuhan University, which was a key part of the overall mission. Months went by as Evelyn continued her rigorous training, not only as a woman but also as an intelligence operative. She learned surveillance techniques, behavioral analysis, emergency protocols, and communication methods, training designed to prepare her for the realities of espionage. By mid-2016, she was ready for the final step in her transformation, her gender affirmation surgery. By that time, Everard had already dissolved within her mind, replaced entirely by Evelyn. She now viewed her past as something distant, almost like a previous life. When she underwent the surgery and recovered, she emerged as someone who could not be traced back to the boy accused in Goa. Her appearance, voice, mannerisms, and presence were indistinguishable from a natural European woman, specifically Portuguese. When she looked at herself in the mirror, she didn't see a transformation. She saw herself, complete, real, and ready for her new life. She felt deep gratitude toward Mr. Rastogi and Mr. Tyagi, not just for saving her life, but for giving it meaning. Yet she also understood the heavy responsibility she carried, because this new identity was not just a gift. It was a mission, one that held the fate of millions in its balance. As planned, Evelyn was sent back to Madgyan, Goa, the very place where Everard's story had ended tragically. But now, she returned not as a memory, but as a new identity. She stepped into the narrative as Evelyn D'Cruz, the long-lost twin sister of Everard, who had been given away at birth and only recently discovered her origins after the death of her adoptive parents. When she entered her old home, now carrying a different name, a different body, and a different life, the experience was overwhelming yet grounding. This was where her journey had begun, and now she was reclaiming it in a way that allowed her to heal. She shared her story selectively with neighbors, requesting them not to spread it widely, explaining that she didn't want her brother's tragic memories to resurface publicly. The people, already sympathetic toward Everard and believing he had been wronged, accepted her without resistance, offering support, compassion, and a sense of belonging that he had never fully received in his previous life. She spent several months living in that house, not just to maintain the cover story, but to psychologically anchor herself as Evelyn, creating new memories in the same space where old pain once existed. This helped her fully transition into the belief that she had always been Evelyn, and this period became crucial for her emotional closure. She grieved her past, not as Everard, but as his sister, a perspective that gave her distance and peace. When her Portuguese citizenship was approved and her admission to the University of Lisbon was finalized, she began preparing for her departure. She used the planned emotional narrative that the house felt too painful for her to stay in, and with the help of the locals, she managed to sell the property, gaining financial independence while maintaining the authenticity of her story. Finally, by the end of 2016, the day arrived when she said goodbye to Goa, to India, and to the last physical connection of her past life. As she boarded her flight to Lisbon, she wasn't running away anymore. She was moving forward, stepping into a future where Evelyn D'Cruz would not just survive, but fulfill a mission far greater than herself. By the end of 2016, Evelyn D'Cruz had officially embraced her new life in Lisbon, Portugal. This land felt both strange and familiar at the same time, not because she had ever lived there before, but because her blood, her language, and her identity now aligned perfectly with her surroundings. For the first time, she could blend in effortlessly, without judgment or questions. Her European features, her natural Portuguese accent, and her confident feminine presence made her existence seamless, almost as if she had always belonged there. Yet beneath that calm exterior was a woman carrying a past no one could imagine, and a mission that could change millions of lives. Following instructions from her agency, she avoided any signs of unnatural wealth or support. Instead, she chose to live like an ordinary student. She rented modest accommodation with a Portuguese family, immersing herself in their daily routines. She observed their habits, their traditions, their emotional expressions, so deeply that suspicion about her true identity became impossible. She enrolled in a master's program in virology at the University of Lisbon, where her academic background supported her new life convincingly. Alongside her studies, she took a part-time job at the university library, working evenings and weekends to support herself independently. This further strengthened her cover, making her life appear authentic. Her days became structured yet meaningful, lectures in the morning, work in the evening, quiet dinners with her host family, and long nights reflecting on her journey. Although everything seemed stable, there was always a silent echo of her past, India, Goa, Everard. But instead of pain, these memories now brought perspective. She knew she had evolved into someone stronger, someone with purpose. Despite the comfort she found in Portugal, she often missed her homeland, the soil she was born in, the anthem she once stood for even inside a prison. But she reminded herself that she was here for that very land. Every step she took in this foreign country was in service of protecting her loved ones from a danger they didn't even realize existed. As months passed, Evelyn adapted completely. Her identity no longer felt fabricated, but lived. Her confidence grew naturally, and she began to embrace her role and her reality. By the time 2017 approached, she wasn't just preparing to become Evelyn anymore. She already was Evelyn in every sense. She was ready for the next, most critical phase of her mission. As 2017 drew to a close, Lisbon transformed into a city of lights, music, and celebration. For Evelyn, this period brought a rare moment of emotional warmth. She experienced Christmas in its most authentic form for the first time in her life, surrounded by traditions that felt deeply rooted in her identity, even though she had only recently begun living them. The festive atmosphere, the decorated streets, the laughter of families, and the sense of belonging gave her a glimpse of a life she could have lived if circumstances had been different. She celebrated with her host family, participated in local traditions, exchanged gifts, and for a brief moment, allowed herself to live without the weight of her mission or the burden of her past. She simply enjoyed life as a young woman, feeling free and joyful. Yet even in those moments, a quiet awareness remained within her, reminding her that this phase was temporary, that something far more significant awaited her in the near future. She knew her transfer to Wuhan University in China was approaching. This was the next step in mission Lady Dhurandhar, where her true purpose would unfold. With that realization came a mix of anticipation and anxiety. Despite extensive training, nothing could fully prepare her for stepping into a foreign land, an unfamiliar language, culture, and people, where she would be completely alone and tasked with infiltrating a highly secretive system. She spent her final months in Lisbon refining herself, perfecting her behavioral nuances, strengthening her emotional control, and maintaining constant communication with Mr. Rastogi and his team through secure channels. Every detail of her transition to Wuhan was carefully planned to appear natural and unplanned. She was briefed again on her objective, reminded of the importance of subtlety, patience, and psychological insight, especially when dealing with her primary target, Dr. Adam Costa, a Portuguese virologist working in Wuhan. Because of his background and circumstances, Dr. Costa was expected to connect with her on a personal level, making him the most viable link to the critical information they needed. Evelyn understood the gravity of this task, that she would need to use not just her intelligence but her emotional skills, her charm, and her ability to build genuine trust. It was essential to form a connection that felt authentic enough to uncover hidden truths beneath layers of secrecy. While the idea of honey trapping someone initially seemed calculated, she was trained to let relationships evolve naturally. Only through authentic bonds could she keep her cover intact and remain undetectable. As the year ended and her departure drew near, Evelyn found herself standing at the edge of two worlds, one she had just begun to belong to, and another she was about to enter, for a mission that could change her life forever. With a deep breath, she prepared herself, not just as an agent, but as a woman ready to face whatever lay ahead. In early 2018, Evelyn packed her belongings, said her goodbyes to the few people she had grown close to in Lisbon, and boarded her flight to Wuhan, China. She was fully aware that this journey marked the true beginning of her mission, a phase where every action, every word, and every emotion would carry consequences far beyond her personal life. As she arrived in Wuhan, the contrast was immediate and striking. The environment was unfamiliar, the language barrier was evident, and the cultural differences were profound. Unlike Portugal, where she could blend in effortlessly, here she stood out instantly as a rare presence, a white Portuguese woman in a region where such appearances were uncommon. But as Mr. Rastogi had predicted, this uniqueness became an advantage. It naturally drew attention, especially from someone like Dr. Adam Costa. Evelyn settled into her university life, attending classes, observing her surroundings, maintaining her composure, and patiently waiting for her path to cross with his. That moment arrived sooner than expected when Dr. Adam Costa entered her class as a visiting professor. The instant his eyes fell on her, there was a subtle but undeniable shift, a recognition, a curiosity, a connection rooted in familiarity amidst foreignness. Evelyn noticed it immediately but remained composed, knowing that success lay in not chasing but in being approached. She let the situation unfold naturally. Over the next few days, she engaged in her studies, interacted normally, never giving him any special attention, yet never ignoring his presence either. As anticipated, the distance she maintained became the very reason he was drawn toward her. One afternoon, sitting alone in the canteen enjoying her home-cooked Portuguese meal, he approached her, initiating a conversation. It confirmed what she already sensed. He had noticed her, was intrigued, and was seeking a connection. Their first conversation was simple but meaningful, filled with subtle cues, shared cultural references, and a growing sense of comfort that neither could deny. When he asked to call her Eve, she responded playfully, balancing closeness with restraint, a skill she had mastered through her training. From there, their interactions gradually increased, messages exchanged, casual conversations turning into planned meetings. Soon, they shared their first coffee, marking the start of what seemed like a genuine relationship, even as it was meant to serve a mission. Sitting together in the cafe, sharing a laugh over Adam and Eve, something shifted within her. For the first time since her transformation, she felt not just like an agent executing a strategy, but like a woman experiencing a real connection. While she remained aware of her purpose, she couldn't ignore the subtle emotions beginning to take root, emotions that would soon complicate everything she was trained to control. That evening, as she walked back, she realized that mission, Lady Dhurandhar, had officially begun, not just as an operation, but as a journey where duty and emotion were about to collide in ways she had never anticipated. So, as Everard fully steps into his new identity as Evelyn and begins to embrace this transformed life, we see a pivotal moment. It's not just about the change on the surface, it's about the deeper implications of this transformation. But just as Evelyn is settling into her new role, the real mission is about to begin. We're talking about a new country, a new world, and a man who, quite unexpectedly, might hold the key to a global catastrophe. What's fascinating here is how what starts as a clear-cut mission can quickly become complicated. Emotions, trust, and love start to seep into this high-stakes game built on deception. It raises the question, will Evelyn be able to stay focused on her original purpose, or will her feelings lead her astray? This adds a layer of tension and vulnerability that makes the story even more compelling. And then there's the looming threat, something that could impact the entire world. It's a reminder that the stakes are incredibly high. As we move into the next part, the tension will escalate even further. The challenges ahead are greater than ever, and the outcome is uncertain. So, what's next? That's the question we're about to explore as the story takes us into even more unpredictable territory.